What's the one thing that everybody wants to do to their car? Make it louder, of course, but there's so many ways to go about making a car louder. Well, we're gonna take a look at one of those ways today, and we're gonna install a set of wireless exhaust cutouts on my boy Nolan's Mustang, so that he can go from quiet to riot with the push of a button. What do you think?
Sounds pretty good.
Let's do it.
Yeah, money pit, baby. Thank you to Off the Record for sponsoring this episode. President's Day is coming up, and we all know you love your 3-day weekends. But remember, the threat of speeding tickets looms large during the holidays. That's why it's always a good idea to have the Off the Record app downloaded on your phone and ready to go. They've got a network of attorneys that can help fight off your ticket, and they even offer a full refund if they're not able to either reduce or keep it off your driving record. So don't panic.
Register now to use code DONUT for 10% off your first ticket at offtherecord.com/donut.
Time's ticking. The inevitable stride of time keeps going.
All right, Nolan, before we go any further, let's find out how loud your car is now. I got a decibel meter.
Sweet.
Any guesses? How many decibels do you think you're putting out at idle?
At idle, probably like 60 decibels at idle.
That's a good guess. Stabbing in the dark, I understand.
And then like a good revving, maybe like 80.
You know what? I bet you're close. Let's go find out.
Okay. I have no idea. Hey, Job, you ready?
Yep. Pretty quiet. Okay, now try to hold it at 4,000 RPMs. All right. Okay, so she's pretty quiet. We got 101 decibels while he's revving it. So that's basically our number to beat with the cutouts. I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I think we're gonna make this thing a lot louder. All right, while Nolan gets the car off the ground, let's talk about some of your options for exhaust modifications. Now, first off, why would you even do an exhaust modification? Well, now we've been over this stuff before. We've done a few videos on exhaust stuff. You can check those out here and here. But just to quickly cover it, of course, modifying your exhaust can make it sound better, and it can free up a few extra horsepower. But there's a few ways to go about it. I mean, if you got a bunch of money, you can replace your entire exhaust from start to finish. But if you've only got a little money, you can just replace a piece or a part of it. Like you can do an axle back or a cat back. So all those mods are cool, but they pretty much leave you with one mode, and that's loud, which is fine for a lot of people and for a lot of cars, but there are a lot of people out there with daily drivers that they wish could make some more noise, but they also like being able to cruise comfortably and quietly. So that's where you kind of land on something like we've got today, which is exhaust cutouts. So Nolan will be able to hit a button and make a bunch of noise, and then hit it again and go back to being quiet without even thinking about it. It's really convenient. Now the cutouts we're gonna be putting on Nolan's car actually come from where I used to work. So shouts out to my boys over at ECS Tuning. Let's go take a look at the cutouts they sent. How's it going, Nolan?
You want it higher, probably?
Oh my God, so much higher. All right, so here's what we have. We've got two cutouts for my boys over at ECS. They're real nice, they're made out of stainless, and they're vacuum actuated. So we're actually gonna connect the vacuum from Nolan's engine to these canisters on the cutouts, and that's what'll physically open the flaps in here. But in operation, all Nolan's gonna have to do is click a button on the key fob, and then that will trigger a solenoid that sends that vacuum to the canister and opens or closes the cutout. So this is all that's gonna be in the car or on Nolan's key ring, and then this is what's gonna be under the car doing the actual cutout work. So they're pretty simple. It just gives the exhaust a path to freedom, and all we gotta do is cut some exhaust out of Nolan's car and slip these things in. Should be pretty easy.
We're gonna take our cutouts and find a place along the exhaust pipe where these boys will fit. And then we'll actually measure out and cut a section of the exhaust out, replace it, and there you go. Now you've got your path for the exhaust to escape.
Yo, Nolan, quit talking about it. Let's come be about it. All right, it is time to actually install these things. So we're gonna do a little divide and conquer setup. Nolan's gonna go under the hood and work on installing the solenoid for the vacuum. Should be pretty easy. And I'm gonna go under the car and actually install the cutouts, which also should be pretty easy. Let's do it.
Cool.
And time.
I don't know how to wire things.
Okay, so under the hood, Nolan has basically two jobs. First off, we need to tee into his vacuum system in the engine. Like we talked about, the vacuum line is going to have to go back to the cutouts to actually actuate them. So that should be pretty easy. We've got some tees that came with the kit, and we just need to physically tee into a vacuum line. And then in line in that vacuum line that we tee out is going to be this solenoid. It'll go the vacuum from the engine, and then this will go back to the cutouts. And then basically this is what turns on and off when you hit the button to actually actuate the cutouts. Now, the thing that triggers this is this. So we also have to install this little box, which connects to the solenoid. And this is our wireless receiver for the key fobs. So this just basically recognizes the signal when Nolan pushes the button. It takes power from your battery and from your ground, and then it sends the signal to this solenoid, which lets vacuum through, which sends it back to the cutouts, and then they magically open and then close again when you hit the button. So it is really a simple setup, but there's just a handful of things to do. All we gotta do is do them.
The vacuum line diameter is much bigger than our step down is. It doesn't even hold in. One, I already cut this vacuum line, so this is the one we kind of have to go with. And there's really not that many options when it comes to vacuum lines on this engine, which is pretty interesting. So we'll just have to go to the Pet Boys down the street and hopefully get something that works for this. Because as it stands right now, my car is immobile.
All right, while Nolan's working on that, I'm gonna go under here and mark out what we need to cut out so we can install the cutouts. Should be pretty easy, but we're gonna have to figure out how to stagger them so they both fit in the space we have. See what we can do. Okay, so we need to trim on the inside of these pieces of tape and just cut out this section right here. And then our cutout will replace it and slip over both ends of the pipe, and that's it. You just need to do that on both sides. All right, so there are plenty of ways that you can cut an exhaust pipe. You can use a cutoff wheel, a reciprocating saw, a hacksaw, but there's also one of these. This is an exhaust pipe cutter. It's basically just got a bunch of hardened steel, real sharp wheels in here. So I basically just wrap this around the exhaust pipe and then clamp it together here at the bottom. Pinch the pliers tight to put pressure on it, and then I can just kind of go like this and it should cut right through. These are pretty sweet. Only like 30 or 40 bucks. Okay. One section disconnecto. Decent looking cut. We'll clean her up with a file. Now I just gotta make this cut and get this piece out of here. All right, well, it looks like the rear section of the exhaust is gonna have to come all the way down to give me enough room to get the old cutout in between, which, I mean, makes sense, but I was really hoping that I could push this more, but I just can't do it. Okay, well, the first one is roughly in place. So we gotta tighten some things up and then hang this this section of the exhaust back up, but the good news is that it fits. It's not gonna make contact with anything, and we should have no problem getting our vacuum line routed to it. Okay, I think I'm gonna be able to make this work with a little bit of trimming, and the other good news is that Nolan actually found what he needed, and he's back now.
This guy. Great. And look at that, it's nice like that. This angled little T here kind of sets us up for success, hopefully. All right, next step, I'll be connecting the smaller vacuum line that will feed back to the solenoid where Zach is working. So we'll do that, here we go. Just like any other sort of line, you're gonna wanna avoid putting this near any really hot surfaces because you don't wanna like melt a hole in your vacuum line. And I'm feeling good today. Taking off my wheel here just so I can have a better view of the routing situation. It's not that big a deal when you've got a nice impact gun. All right, so as you can see, dangling my little hose down. All right. Job had a good idea and to route the vacuum lines as close to the fuel lines as we can, just because it's already protected by this little skid plate here, and I think that's a good idea because right now how I have it routed is right next to the exhaust, so that's not what we want.
Okay, well, the second one is in place and I haven't even trimmed it yet, and it's really not bad. We are losing probably 1 inch of ground clearance here, which I don't really like. So I'm gonna trim this turn down so I can rotate this up a little bit more and save Nolan's ground clearance. Should be okay. All right, well, I'm gonna work on trimming up this, this turn down. You wanna work on wiring up the solenoid trigger?
Sure.
Or finding a place to mount it or any of these things?
Yeah. Do that.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, while Zach is finishing up the back end, we're gonna continue up front. We're gonna wire up the antenna box to the fuse relay here. Make sure the cable management is done correctly because this looks really bad right now. And also find a place to mount the solenoid. So I had the wire routed out in my engine bay. I was just gonna zip tie to the existing wiring harness, but Job had a really good point that that'd look like shit. So what I did was undid my my cowl here. So I'm gonna be able to just hide the wire underneath here. There's a lot of space. Just tuck that into there, and Bob's your uncle, you know? Now I have a couple options for mounting the antenna box onto the shock tower here. There's already a pre-existing hole there that we could probably riv nut and make work, but the holes on the unit itself are actually really small, so I don't feel too good about that. Just be kind of weird. So the other option is some double-sided tape here. Just really easy. Don't need to cut anything, don't need to use any tools. And it'll probably last a long time. You can either go 2 ways with double-sided tape. It'll either last like a week, or you will never be able to get it off anything in your entire life without the aid of solvents. So I think that's a pretty decent option.
All right, well, still got a little bit of turn down, not much, granted. I'm gonna clean that up and then test fit it. I think she'll fit.
All right, so I'm just test fitting to see which of these loops best fit on the main power wire. Looks like the smaller one, which is the one I wanted to go with anyway, so that's good. So this will be power, and then we gotta find a ground somewhere, and then we'll be good, which is pretty cool, actually. This could be a ground right here.
Yeah, that should be pretty good. That should be decent on ground clearance, and it comes out nice. It still turns down pretty well. It should shoot off this pipe a little bit and hit the ground. Yeah, I think that's gonna be cool. Let me get this back half in.
Where's that check valve?
Oh, you know, I want to say it's in this creeper. Ow! Wow! I've never been hit in the armpit like that. I moved it earlier, but I don't remember where. Okay, so I'm just tightening up the clamps on the cutouts now. I think I've got them in their final position, nice and packaged in here. It is a little tight over here, so I'm gonna keep an eye on that. Make sure that it doesn't make contact when these get hot, because obviously your exhaust gets really hot when the car is running, and because of that, it expands. So I'm gonna make sure none of this actually makes contact once it is warm, but I think we're gonna be okay. So I'm just gonna tighten these up, and then we just gotta put the vacuum lines onto the canisters. Okay, so the cutouts are fully installed, they're all plumbed up, and Nolan's got everything wired under the hood. So the install is done. Now we just need to get the car off the jack stands and let this baby sing.
All right, let's do it. Let me try.
Let's flip them puppies open. Oh yeah. Okay, so now that the cutouts are on and working, let's get some decibel readings and see how loud things are now.
Job, you ready?
Yes. Okay, she's open now. All right, give her some revs. All right, now try holding it at 4,000. Okay, well, not like it's a huge surprise, but we did pick up some decibels across the board. Picked up about 3 at idle, picked up about 15 revving it, and we picked up about 21 at 4,000 RPMs. That's a lot of decibels. And the thing doesn't sound wild. I think it sounds really good and refined. But I also think it's gonna sound even better on the road under some load. So let's go drive it. And God help them if there are any crowds out there.
Very original. All right, hopefully we don't scrape it off as we, which way should we go?
Scrape it off.
Let's go that way.
Any way you want. You know, the ground clearance thing, first off, it looks like you've got great ground clearance. We really didn't lose much. But it's also really close to your axle, so that, you know, anything you hit, it'll be hitting your tires.
Turn this off real quick so we can talk. I
love talking over a loud exhaust. I don't know about you. All right, let's let this baby sing. Well, the Mustang finally sounds like a Mustang.
It does. It really does. It sounds
you like
awesome.
it? What do you think?
I love it. It's not. I mean, I'm sure it's obnoxious as hell on the outside when we did that.
I don't think obnoxious is the right word.
But it that's the sound you want when you have a car like this.
Yeah, when you have a V8, you should be hearing it.
Yeah.
And now I'm glad you can. And it's also nice that you can also not.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you can close her and pull into your into home and not wake your neighbors up.
I would not want to have this all the time. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I get that. You know, like it is really nice to have a car that is just comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, Nolan, I'm glad the Mustang finally sounds like a Mustang.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, well, hey man, anytime. And also, another thanks to my friends over at ECS for sending us the cutouts.
Yeah, definitely.
Big thanks. Sweet way to get Nolan's Mustang sounding cool. Also, big thanks to you guys for watching. I hope you had a good time helping us make Nolan's Mustang make some noise. So thanks again for watching. Follow me on Instagram at Zach Job. Follow Nolan at Nolan J Sykes, and we'll see you guys next week. Goodbye. Ooh, oh, you want some? Emmy?